Okay, welcome back, everyone. You're watching the TGF Tech Games Fest stream. If you're watching this via the Cause and Effect Gamers YouTube channel after the event, thank you very much for watching. Our next speaker is Josh. I've known Josh for quite a while. You know, I can still remember him doing all his indie games and stuff that he did, you know, that were absolutely amazing. I remember an event we did many years ago, and it was a 432-seat theater he was doing his secondary presentation at, and it was standing room only. So it was quite amazing. He doesn't remember it that way, but I do, because everyone was talking about it. But welcome, Josh. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks so much for having me here. I don't think I remember it because I was just so nervous at the time. I remember shaking and, sweating, but yeah, I guess, it's back in my mind now.
Yeah, because I remember doing. Yeah, you're on stage. You did that, and I remember everyone was like, oh, "Wow!" And then, you went and did your secondary one, and people were blown away, and they were really excited. And it's one of those ones that it always stood out, because I remember speaking to people about it at school visits and stuff afterwards, saying, "Hey, he got up and did this," and half the event went to see him. The only reason the others didn't go in because they couldn't get in the room. So it's pretty amazing stuff. So since that time, you first started off just doing indie gaming. Let's start with there. What got you into doing indie gaming?
Yeah, sure. So it was actually around that earlier conference where I think I was, 15 or 16 at the time, I spoke there, and I actually caught up with a few friends there too. And one of them was like, I know we should look into making an indie game as a portfolio piece so we can get jobs later on. And sort of, that's in the back of the mind for a while as well. And then it wasn't until I was getting later on in high school, one of my mates, Lee McLaughlin's fantastic 3D artist, and I'm talking to him going, you really should make something. And again, you get busy playing games and doing everything else and schoolwork as well. And then something popped up, which was the Australian STEM Games Challenge. And this is a really cool contest for, kids in high school, and I believe primary school as well, maybe, and double check that. But where you can, make a game with a theme, and you submit it to to a judging panel who's made up of like industry professionals. I've now been asked back to be a judge at some point as well, which is quite nice as well.
Fantastic.
And and so we made a game for that, and we made this game called Smog Game, which was a color matching endless runner, which was teaching kids about saving the environment, because Liam and I, are super passionate about, sort of shaping our world in that positive way.
Yeah.
And we made that game, we ended up, getting like first place and stuff, and that was really cool. A year later, we put it on the App Store, and so it just went from there. And at that point, that was 2015, I think it was. 2015, and I had worked on through some work experiences and stuff, a console game at Big Ant Studios, who are a very big studio in Melbourne. They do lots of sports games. So, worked on that, it's like summer holidays and stuff and work experiences. I had done the indie game and actually went back there afterwards to become a full-time employee there, which is quite cool.
Fantastic. So yeah, it's it's a long thing, because it's funny thing is, it's like, I feel like me being much older, time kind of almost stands still. So, but for you, it's been a big change of experience, because I can still remember, the impressionable high school kid that kind of wowed everyone, and then you've gone on to, onto bigger, better things, and that's a great thing, because I think that's one thing is that one I could tell even back then that you were someone who was like doer, that you were like, oh, I want to go do this, I'm going to go do it. The other thing I was going to mention is that when you were talking about the environment, a lot of people that I speak to in interviews and things I do like this, a lot of gamers have that social conscience, whether they're talking about environmentalism or, people with anxieties, depression, that sort of thing. It always comes up. And I always think that is, I don't know if it's because of the creative mind or it's just how it is, but I always find that a really great thing to actually hear. Like I think it's I don't know. It's just good. It's good to hear it, because it's like, wow,
it really is.
You're doing something, and you're one person, or you're two people, and you're doing something that's will help change things.
Yeah, maybe it's always the plan, anyways. But I do find, especially, we can touch on this a bit later, but one of the reasons why I love doing game development is purely just because of the people. And
Mm,
games is actually almost the secondary thing of why games are great. Like video games are super cool, they're super fun to make,
mm,
very technically challenging and creative challenging as well. But yeah, the people in games are super smart, super passionate, super friendly. And I guess that's the byproduct. If you get people going, hey, I want to have a positive impact in the world, whatever that may be,
yeah.
which is great.
Yeah. Now, when you were starting off doing your indie stuff and stuff that high school and or maybe even through other education that you did, what sort of software were you using?
Yeah, so I entered sort of making games at a really cool time where I first started using what was called at the time the Unreal Development Kit, or UDK, and that was just a free version of Unreal Engine 3, which had shipped games like Gears of War, Unreal Tournament, and lots of you know almost hundreds of games at this point.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, so I noticed one day that, hey, I could use that for free. So you get tools like which is now UE4, you get Unity, you've got Game Maker, you've got Godot as well. So like
mm,
yeah, so at the time it was just UDK for me because that was what
mm,
was free, and using Liam would use Blender, which is still free and awesome today.
yeah.
But yeah, throughout the years now, even in my home projects, I'll dabble on Unity or Unreal because the multi-million dollar polished pieces of software that the professionals use as well, and
Yes.
it's free. So yeah,
That was a big thing, especially with a lot of my programs and that because a lot of people go, oh, Andrew, you're more geared to the high school, helping the high school kids out and that. Well, I'm pretty much for everyone. But that was one of the key things that I used to, even when I used to talk about to Autodesk all those years ago when they only had a personal learning edition and for like Studio Max or Maya, but it put these massive watermarks and everything. Everyone didn't like it, and the person who was in charge of that sort of thing, who I'm still friends with, he's not with Autodesk anymore, and he was not aware that high school kids were actually using these things. So I'm like, yeah, I'm getting to use the PLEs to enter competitions and all that sort of stuff,
yeah,
and
wow,
he was amazed. And it was from that he went on to go, look, it's interesting you said that because we never really paid attention. And then he started, they stand up finding out about high schools in other parts of the world that were doing it. It just didn't come up on their radar. And then that's when they started going, well, okay, let's get rid of all these watermarks because it's a turn off for kids, and kids are frustrated because they're building games, they're doing 3D, and it's just all this blah all over it. And
yeah.
they're using it, and this is what they're probably going to use for their professional life, later
Exactly,
on.
and some of the games that come out of high school kids are crazy. I want to be out of a job in 5 years. I guarantee it. Just it's as I mentioned before, I judged one of the STEM challenge. I
Hmm.
think it was, 2017 or 2018 or whatever. And some of the games coming through were just phenomenal. And I'm thinking, I'm becoming a better coder as I go on.
Hmm.
But yeah, damn, like 5 years from now, I want to be out of a job. I don't have kids coming through and teaching me. So,
It's funny how you refer to them as kids because I still see you as a kid. So
oh yeah,
it's mainly because I always think of Josh. When it's funny with some people, when you first meet them, you still know them from that period. So in the
yeah,
back of my mind, yeah, Josh is 15, but he's doing this now. No, he's not. He's an adult. So he's a professional. He's a
it,
professional game developer now. So yeah.
it's
Now,
quite funny.
yeah.
I work just on that. I work with a bunch. So the games industry is super small, and everyone sort of knows everyone, which is
Hmm,
great. But
hmm,
also, I get the thing where a lot of the coworkers I work with now at Sledgehammer Games, like I've known since I was 15 as well. So
okay.
I also sort of wonder like, I reckon they see me as a kid sometimes, and it's
Yeah, yeah. And the funny thing is, there'll be 15-year-olds who'll be looking at you, going, "Look at this old guy." So
yeah.
yeah, we say, "Dude, that was a big shock to my system." I remember I was 21, and I was speaking to these. I went to practice some cricket, just bowling a ball, and there was some 16-year-olds. I'm like, "How you doing?" And they're like, "What are you talking to us for?" And I go, "What?" I'm like, "I'm 21." And they're like, "You're old." I'm like, "How old are you?" And they're 16. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I went, "I'm going there." I was like, "Wow, I didn't see that."
uh,
One thing you mentioned pre-interview was the difference with between indie development and AAA. Working on
yeah.
that. Can you enlighten?
Yeah, absolutely. So end of the day, right? Both, AAA and indie and everyone in between, you're making games. So a lot of the core skills transfer across. But definitely as an indie, we use the terminology of many hats. You'll be, the hat you might be putting on today, you might be doing design or being, production as as a producer, or might be doing some audio work.
Mm,
Um, and so for Smog Game, which is what Liam and I worked on, I did coding, I did code design with them as well. I did a lot of the VFX, some texture
mm,
work as well, and you should see my programmer art. It's not great, and then now I've moved into the AAA space where I work on Call of Duty. Um, I specifically do coding because there's much better artists than me, and
mm,
and there's just so much work to be done. So the scale of the games is really big as well.
yeah.
So I guess the big thing too is uh, independent developers generally have to wear many hats because either the scale is smaller
Mm,
or just there's a lot less people that they can actually work with at that time, whether it's due to budget reasons or if it's due to a myriad different reasons.
yeah.
Um, and then in the AAA space, again, like one Call of Duty level you know, might take months and months and months of work,
Mm,
and that could be the whole production cycle for a smaller indie title too. But the same skills transfer across. So I'm still a terrible coder now as I was back then. So yeah, no, it just comes down to scale and who you have available really.
yeah. Now, going back, before even your indie development, or even around that time, what games were you playing that really made an impression on you, and you think that influenced you from the person you are today?
Oh, that's a great question. One of them has to be Free Space 2, which,
Mm,
so when I was growing up, I wasn't, my parents wouldn't allow me to buy games because, games were expensive and you're going to focus on schoolwork, which is 100%, the right call. And so what I did have though was the PC, I think it was a PC Power Play 100 Best Demos disc. And on that were games like Revolt, and the two I remember was Revolt, and the other one was Free Space 2, which is very similar to I think it's Elite Dangerous or the what's the other what's a really big space game that's still being made. Uh, it gets funding all the time. Anyways,
okay.
it's a space simulator one, and that
Yeah.
was I remember the specific scene where you're flying the spaceship and you've just left like your mothership and you're flying around and you enter this pink nebula and the visual effects on that were awesome, and then like you get ambushed out of nowhere, and that was the first time I remember being really engrossed in a video game with the
Mm,
stories, and I'm caring about my AI wingmates who are not real with 1990s voice acting, but yeah, that was definitely the game that sort of inspired me to it'd be really cool if I made this myself as well. So
yeah.
yeah.
No, no, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm always very fascinated by people's influences about what they played, and sometimes what games they really enjoyed, and how that kind of carried on to later on. And in some ways, some people go, "Oh, it wasn't a direct influence," and then they talk about it and they go, "Actually, no, it was." So yeah, when they really think about it, and how now also thinking back to 15-year-old Josh.
All right.
Now, 15-year-old Josh, how would he compare to Josh now? Would he imagine where he's working right now?
Not at all. No,
No?
that's a really cool thing. I think I don't know if I had a time machine and went back
Mm,
and met my 15-year-old self, I'd
mm,
like to think he'd be wrapped with where
yeah.
I am at the moment. So speaking about not being able to buy games, the very first game I was able to buy was Call of Duty 2.
Yeah.
Um, and that was the coolest thing ever. And I didn't even know how multiplayer worked at the time.
Mm,
I spent 2 years just playing the single player over and over until I realized I had to swap from LAN to internet, right? And the game had come out,
yeah.
so I bought the game like 2 or 3 years afterwards. So I remember, watching the credits over and over and over again as a kid, and I remember being like, "Oh, it'd be really cool to work on a Call of Duty game."
Mm,
And never thought that would happen, and here I am, almost, not even that much later, working
no.
on Call of Duty titles and being all.
Yeah,
yeah, like my name's in credits of Call of Duty games. That's super cool. So
that's
yeah, I'd
great.
like to think 15-year-old Josh is wrapped. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, it's like when you think back to that period too, did you actually have other people who would say, "Look, I think you've got what it takes to go on"? Because I know I was saying it to you because I could see it, and it wasn't as much. It was like, "Oh yeah, I think you've got skills," but it was more of your determination and your focus. That was the things that I saw, and I went, "No, this is someone who's really, has things together, knows where he wants to go. He's showing what he can do, and I can still remember about your dad going, oh no no no, he's got to make your own games and all that sort of. I remember that, and I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
thinking, well, look, he's probably going to be the one that who in the shorter period who's probably going to go into the industry because one also your persona you're very very friendly and has that easygoing sort of approachable thing. So I was like, overall, I think this is the one who's going to do it.
Well,
Unless,
thank
unless,
you.
in,
Yeah.
unless in 2 or 3 years' time he decides he wants to become a professional thief or something, and then it's all ruined. But yeah, I thought no, this would be the one. I remember seeing stuff of yours, with appearing through, was saying it was free play and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I was like, okay, and I remember what because I'd been watching your career, and I was like, yep, this is where I was expecting him to go, and this is where, and it was like it
Well, I'm
wasn't,
I'm glad you knew.
yeah, it wasn't to me, it wasn't a surprise. So yeah, yeah, did you ever get that sort of encouragement around
Oh,
those ages?
yeah, 100%. So one of the big reasons why I'm in games, again, as I mentioned, is the people. And there's
Mm,
no way, I'd be where I am today without, literally hundreds of people.
mm,
Even from things where I was attending, those conferences when I was a lot younger, I had, people there to look after me, I had people
mm,
being, the, the thing I thought I would run into is, oh, you're a kid, go to the side and blah, blah,
yeah.
blah, but that was never the case really. Nine out of 100 times, everyone's like, wow, what are you working on? Who are you? What are you doing?
Mm,
Oh, you should come meet my friend as well.
mm,
And that sort of, took off from there. So there's no way I'd be where I am today without everyone who's so supportive. Like even the coworkers I mentioned before,
yeah,
who've known me since I'm 15,
yeah,
I've had, one of those coworkers even did mock interviews for me
yeah.
to get me prepared to interview, years ago.
That's good.
Now we're working together. So,
Yeah.
and that's one of the big things I try and carry on is I try and like I do portfolio reviews for for students as well, just
Mm,
because I know how hard it can be and how daunting it can be
yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really like how supportive it is. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. I think it's a great success story. So, no, it is. It is. So, just seeing, how it goes, and you probably one of very few people that I even like at that point because I used to get parents who'd come up to me and go, and I'd be truthful, and they'd go, "Oh, so do you reckon they're like no?" And they're like, "What do you mean
Oh,
no?" And I go, "Well, well, they didn't pay any attention. They're not doing anything. They like the
yeah.
idea, but no, it's like, okay." And they go, but he plays Minecraft all the time. I go, that's great. And so does a lot of other people.
Yeah.
That's not going to make,
That
that's not, yeah,
That
that's
was
not going to make
the
it
that was
efficient.
the big thing that I found. Yeah, that's
Mm,
the big thing I found where that I actually enjoyed making games more than playing games,
yeah.
and that's sort of where it clicked. Where again, I did that very initial work experience at Big Ant years and years ago, which
Mm,
Ross was super kind for me, allow me to do that, and
mm,
it was like that first initial week I went, oh wow, this is way cooler than playing games all day.
yeah.
The analogy I heard the other day, which is really cool, is I love eating food, but does it make
Yeah.
me a great professional chef?
Yeah, that's
Um,
right. Yes.
so,
Mm,
and everyone has their own strengths.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, that's good. So, uh, your job history, is there any titles that you can mention from the past that you've worked on, or anything like that?
yeah. Yeah, no. So I can even go through the whole shebang, I guess. So the initial title was Rugby League Live 2 for the
Yep.
360 and PlayStation 3. And that was again Ross and everyone else at Big Ant was super kind for me to, allow me to, work my summer holidays and, contribute and learn a lot there too. So that was the initial thing. And then I did Smog Game with Liam and a few other people. And from that, there was a good portfolio piece where I actually went back to Big Ant as a full-timer. And I was there for there for a couple of years, which was really great. And then I moved across to where I'm now, which is Sledgehammer Games.
Yep.
Where I work in Call of Duty. And
just had my cat jump on me.
Yeah, it's all good. I actually had to throw my cat out before as well. And yeah, now I'm at Sledge where like I was one of the we had like 6 people in a broom closet almost. And now we've gone full studio, which is super cool. So yeah, that's where I'm now and loving it.
Oh, fantastic. That's really, really good. So a few things this way I ask everyone. Favorite movie? Or what are you watching at the moment?
That's a really good question. All right, so what I'm watching at the moment, I'm going through with my partner. We're both going through Rush Hour at the moment, which is great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like an old classic, and she loves it too. And I love it, so that's great.
Yeah.
And then I guess in this nostalgia thing of Beverly Hills Cop 2 hasn't aged too well, but that was interesting.
Yes.
But I guess no. But favorite recent movie would have to be, I think, Interstellar blew me away.
Okay.
That or Sicario. Like even so, for example, one of the reasons why I really love Sicario is there's a YouTube channel that breaks down, different scenes and parts in the movie, in any movie, but they did one for Sicario as well. And the border crossing scene was amazing, and how they built up, tension in there as well.
Yeah.
And even just watching that, I had to then rewatch the movie again as well and go, yeah, that's a really, like, they've done some amazing work storytelling. And of course, being the nerd I am, how can I apply that back to the games I work on and, the games my friends work on as well? Like there's so much sort of crossover with film and TV and, just any form of media really. So, yeah.
Cool. So what made you watch Beverly Hills Cop 2? Were you watching like the first one, the second one, and the third one, or you just picked the second one?
No, Beverly Hills Cop 2 was because I think it was on TV at one point when I was younger, and I watched it, and it probably wasn't age appropriate at the time.
Yeah.
I probably missed half the jokes as a result too.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, it's like that and like Rumble in the Bronx were like the 2 movies that stuck out to me as a kid. And have them on VHS and just watch them over and over again. Yeah. I don't know. That's movies like that. And then I guess if I add that to Sicario too, Sicario just purely for the pacing of the movie and just fantastic. Cool. Yeah, it's definitely watch it. You haven't seen it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I wanted to say on behalf of TGF Tech Games Fest, Cause and Effect Gamers and everything else, I'd like to say thank you very much, Josh, for sharing some of your thoughts, giving up some of your time for this, because it's all the whole thing is done to raise money for TLC for Kids. And I just want to say, thank you very much. And it's good to actually speak to you after, a few years.
Yeah, it's been, and thanks so much for having me. I hope everyone's enjoying, TGF as well, because it looks exciting. So,
all right. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks so much. Catch you later.
Bye.